today's gospel, we hear about the Pharisee and the tax collector. Of course, the Pharisee is educated and he knows the law. The tax collector is not well liked because he imposes levies a tax on the people. The story reminded me of something I saw, I think it was on Facebook, about this gentleman that needed this businessman that needed an office manager. So he runs an ad for applicants. And then he decides to dress as a beggar, a blind beggar, and sit in front of his establishment so he can witness the applicants. The first applicant comes by, and the beggar, on purpose, has left some large bills out of his cup. And the first applicant drops his, let's say his resume, his little folder, and he scoops up the large bills and he leaves. And the beggar sets out some more money. Second applicant comes by and he picks it up and he's going to hand them to the beggar. And he says the beggar is blind, so he just puts them in his pocket and leaves. The beggar sets out some more money. Third applicant comes by and he sees the money out of the cup and he picks it up and he goes to the beggar and gives it to him. Told him that he dropped the money. And the first two applicants arrive at the office, interview office, and they're talking about their credentials, how well they're qualified to be the manager of that office. And the third applicant comes in and they look at him. He's not as well dressed as they are. And they make fun of him. Says, what's this applicant doing here? He doesn't even dress the part. I'm sure he's not even qualified. And so now the owner comes in to do the interviews, and he asked all three of them for the resumes. And the first two, he dismisses them, tells them, thank you for your time and effort coming here, and they don't quite understand what's happening. And so he offers the manager's position to the third applicant. The third applicant accepts. And the thing is, the third applicant is honest and humble. Remember in the gospel, the Pharisee said, talk about the other people. I'm not like the greedy, the adulterers, and such. The third applicant took responsibility for all that he had done, for all that he had committed, and he asked forgiveness. And I was thinking, I said, when it's like going to confession and saying, I wouldn't have sinned if if it had been for my friends that asked me to go out with them and gamble or go out and drink. That's what the story about the Pharisee reminds me of, that he blames others, talks about others, but doesn't take responsibility for his own actions. And that's why the gospel says, those that exalt themselves will be humbled, but those that are humble will be exalted. And in the second reading, Timothy is reflecting on his life. It's nearing the end of his journey. Oh, that I would receive the crown of righteousness, right? He says, I have competed well. I have finished the race. And I have kept the faith. Timothy was one of Paul's helpers in establishing the communities that Paul established, like Corinth, Philippi, Ephesus. And so he endured a lot of hardships. So he says, now await the crown of righteousness that the Lord, the just God, will award me. When we too think about the end of our journey, and we think about, we'd like to receive that crown of righteousness, right? That crown of righteousness, which means that we spend the rest of our days in the company of God's angels and saints. So we too have to be like Timothy, compete well, finish our earthly race, and most of all, keep the faith.